unless it's funny, something funny. But you know. All right, this is the Coast to Coast Combat Hour. First week of October, got loaded with MMA. Ed Carbajal, as always, here with Matthew Hawkins. Brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. Please check out your MMA news over at AllAccessMMA.com. Matt, we had so many guests, we didn't really get to catch up on anything. So I'm just muting my phone here, and we can catch up and give our hot takes on all the news that we missed out on.
Yeah, no, it's nice to make it till October. Uh,
My
for me,
favorite month.
yeah, your birthday month. The temperature starts to drop a little bit for me. Starts to get terrible for you. So
Yeah,
it's the world is almost back to normal.
almost. I mean, at least
It's
in Texas and Florida. So
yeah, no, I mean I'm traveling to an event this weekend, and you might be heading out of town in the next couple weeks. It sounds like to get away a
yeah,
little bit, so that's good. But yeah, no, we've had a nice string of guests. Had some people help us line some stuff up, which has been awesome. And I figure, like you said, we'll just kind of use this week to catch up on some of the stuff that we haven't been able to talk about. I guess the
yeah.
biggest news.
I
Go ahead.
think it was. I mean, the last time when we had, I mean, we actually had just before UFC 253. One of the guests we had was Brandon Royval, and he was on that UFC 253 card. So, maybe we should talk about that because he obviously impressed a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean the UFC 253 card was a was huge. Um, Fights turned out to be great. Uh, Again, I wish we would have talked about this a little sooner, but yeah, Royval really uh, kind of stole the. Well, it's hard to say that with the way the main event got to, but as far as it's just amazing. While on the show here, he talked about kind of when I asked him about old fighters that he kind of liked
Yeah,
to, you know, uh, set himself up to be like Miguel Torres. And I mean, I gotta admit, when I started watching that fight, yeah, it was like watching a Miguel Torres clone for a lot of the movements,
yeah.
look, the body type. I mean, you don't have the sweet mullet, but
Hey, he could always grow that in. He's
yeah,
got
no,
good
that's
hair.
that's an accessory that could be added. So yeah, no, I mean he looked amazing. Finishing with a guillotine choke, second round of the 3 round fight. Finished off Kai Kara France. Now he's stepping in to fight Brandon Moreno coming up here. I mean, the boy's doing it right, man. I
Yeah,
mean, you talk about jumping in and I mean, I know he had a name in LFA, and a lot of the guys, James Lynch, a lot of the bigger media guys, really up on him um, prior to him showing up in the UFC. But I can't think of many UFC fighters that just jumped in and basically it's like three top what 7 8 guys in the world that are going to be his first three bouts. He's 2-0
yeah.
against the first two against Elliott
Yeah, I
and
mean,
now France.
when you impress the way that he did, I mean, he even got dropped and just shook it off and continued fighting, turned it into a move. I mean, you gotta love it. I mean, that's you and I were both watching that uh, on our respective coasts, and I was tweeting. I always live tweet during most of the events, and I was just like, man, this guy talked about how he looked up to Miguel Torres, and like you said, that moment right there, and then the way he strung together the submission attempts before he actually hit one, I was just like, man, this kid is no joke. When he was on here, we talked to him about how he kind of his mind kind of gets in a flow state. I guess most fighters do when they're fighting, but I mean, to do it like that when you're in trouble and just kind of like not even acknowledge the shot and keep going, that was that's why he's getting booked the way he's getting booked.
Yeah, and it makes the fights exciting when you have a guy who I mean, even in his first fight, he was down, he was getting beat up a little bit, and he rallied for the submission. In this one, like you said, he basically got dropped, and as he was falling to the floor through a back spinning elbow, and nearly knocked out France. So, I mean, when you have somebody who, even when they're kind of down in a fight, even though in this fight it was only a matter of seconds, they're able to um, really, continue to entertain and continue to find ways out and create like that is impressive. So I mean, I love it, man. I think him and Moreno is a fight that I mean that's a tremendous fight. It essentially without pulling up all the rankings, it's basically a number one contender fight. I know we had Cody Garbrandt drop out of the title fight. So was Alex Perez is stepping into the title fight, he was initially scheduled to fight Moreno. Now Royval steps in. I mean,
Hey,
essentially making that, like I said, a number one contender fight. Dude, we talked to him. His first fight could essentially be his first big fight with a big crowd. Could be a world title fight. Um, Going for a 4-0 record in the UFC. I mean,
hey, I mean, if anything, I mean, we talked about it a lot on this podcast before, and especially when you look at that particular match right there, like the matchmaking with pandemics it's proving to be a lot of opportunity for up and coming fighters. I mean, I know someone's probably going to beat me to the article that I've been meaning to write, just because we're still in it, we're still in the whole COVID-19 situation, but when it starts when things start getting back to somewhat normal, which it looks like. I mean, I know we're going to get to that towards the end. You're finally getting to travel to an event again, so and maybe that's not too far off. But like when we get somewhat back to normal, we got to look back and see at all the stars and opportunities that have come out of all these fights and during this whole horrible year.
yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is we're in that. I'm not sure the exact. I think it's November 21st, maybe the 15th. I can't remember the exact date scheduled for the Royval Moreno fight. I think it's the 21st. Now that I think about it, so realistically, that would be his third fight in a real
Mm-hmm.
short amount of period. Figueiredo, if he were to win or lose, you figure the next title fight's probably not going to be for a minimum of 4 months. You think Royval, even they might, if Royval's the choice, if he wins again, you would think UFC might even want to give him a little time to
Yeah.
to kind of game plan and give him a full camp for a world title fight and to hype it up, because at that point, if he wins his next fight, he's going to be the talk of the town.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the quick turnovers. I mean, depending on the fighter and stuff, but like I forget what card. There were so many events since the last time we got to recap some stuff. But Sajara Eubanks fought like within 3 weeks time, and I normally pick her to win, but I already knew she lost by decision. But I already knew she was going to lose because I was like, that's too much, especially somebody that's that goes the
Yeah,
full distance like her. You do it
yeah,
twice, and it can wear on the body.
yeah. No, it can. You would know better than me as somebody who is a full on martial arts, not a competitor, but you train full on in it, so you know the beating it takes just to do what you do. Um,
I got knee
I,
bar 2 days in a row last week, so I'm walking funny.
I
Actually, it was 2 weeks ago. I'm still walking funny from it, but yeah.
Did somebody come into the gym, or did one of your old school
No,
training
it's that.
partners just catch you?
Yeah, no, it's just somebody that's getting better. One of these young cats that used to fight. Shout out to Jay Frigursky. He, as an old head jujitsu guy, I'm not as versed in the leg lock game as these young cats are, and it's starting to become apparent. So bastard got me in gi and no gi 2 days in a row. I was like, son of a bitch, and it was my fault though that I didn't tap fast enough because I was kind of like looking at it. I was like examining it. I'm like, how do I get out of this? Meanwhile, he wants to get his tap, so he's cranking away.
Oh,
And I was like, oh wait, let me tap because I felt my leg start to bend the other way, and I was like, all right, this is not good.
yeah,
So,
that's knee bars are a rough thing, but
oh
um,
yeah,
getting back to what I was saying basically is you figure if we're 4 or 5 months away from a title fight, there's a good chance. Here's the way I look at it. We see events starting to open up now. Most of
hmm
them, the one I'm going to, is social distance event. I know Texas is starting to allow fans in. We know the UFC. We know the minute they can put 25 or 20,000 people in any arena in the world, even if it's
hmm
20,000 in an 80,000 seat Cowboy Stadium, uh,
yeah,
the UFC, I feel like, is not going to let that money go to waste, especially when you got Connor sitting on the sidelines. So there's a good chance, and we talked about with Royval that his first fight could be huge and could be
yeah.
quite a not a culture shock, but
This,
just a shock to step it in. He admitted that a live crowd like that would be wild for him.
yeah. I mean, it's something that he said he didn't really think about. I mean, hopefully it doesn't throw him off because I know he kind of hinted that it might make him nervous and might not. But Paul's got actually a really good question that kind of ties into our quick turnover conversation. Um, He says he heard Bisping say that Chimaev needs to choose between the two weights with all the recent double champs and whatnot. Do you agree with Bisping that Chimaev should focus on one weight? I feel like it would make it. I don't know. I feel like
No,
no.
no, not coming from Bisbing. I mean, keep in mind Bisbing fought at 205 and fought at 185,
Yeah.
so he was fighting in two weight classes. Now, given he wasn't bouncing back totally, but he was a name product who came in through the Ultimate Fighter. I think Chimaev is doing exactly what he should do. I can't think of another 2-0 fighter that most
Mhm.
casual fans couldn't point out of a lineup really that is making the name that he is for himself.
Yeah.
Um, I think that you fight in the UFC nowadays, especially as we've talked about during the COVID stuff. There's no
Mhm.
guarantees. Why pit yourself into a corner if he can compete at both weight classes? Now, obviously, he's probably much better at the smaller one just because his strength and his if he's able to get any
He's got a
weight class
large
you get the
frame. Yeah.
smaller, exactly, you're going to be better at. But with the middle weights and the stuff going on, you never know. Why he's calling out Asanya and all these guys. Why not do it
Yeah.
if
I
you're
mean,
here?
he's there to build a career too. So yeah, it's cool to call out everybody. But I mean, as far as I don't know if I'm as keen on him doing the two weight classes as um he wants to be, only because so he fought three times. I believe the two of those three were at 185.
Three times, you're right. Three
Yeah,
times he fought. Yeah,
because he
that's
did
right.
185, 170, 185 again, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and the 185 fights are obviously, I mean, like he beat Mearshart, who I think was ranked somewhere, right? I'd have to look back at the rankings of where Mearshart was, but it's like, okay, if you beat someone that's ranked at least in the top 20 or something like that, then don't you take that person's place? And if you're in that, if you're ranked there, then I mean, I know fighters are ranked in double weight classes all the time, but I just feel like you're new to the UFC, you climbed that fast. I mean, if you're trying to take that path, as the quick path like Adesanya took, then I don't. If you're supposed to be this unbeatable world beater, I wouldn't mind them working their way up to that fight. But I mean, I know we're going to talk about the main event at UFC 253, so I'll save the rest of my conversation, my Chimaev comment for when we get there. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
his
don't know.
last fight
I
was
like
at
him at
185.
185 more than 170.
Yeah, I mean the sample size for me is still fairly small, but
Hmm.
I don't want him bouncing back and forth per se once he gets established. But at this point right now, like you said with the matchmaking we're getting, why say, hey, I won't fight at that weight class? Fights can pop up anytime. We've said it before, they're prize fighters. Um, he might as well get the money and if he can, collect these bonuses and everything. I don't see any reason to right now establish himself so early. If the UFC can book him at any fights they want, if the UFC only wants to offer him welterweight fights or middleweight fights, they can do that. But if the
Yeah,
UFC says, hey, you want to fight Leon Edwards, tomorrow, and then you want to fight Adesanya in a month and a half, and they're offering it to him, I think he'd be stupid to say no. Um, Especially he seems uber confident, so I don't think in his mind he loses anyway. That'll be obviously we'll have to wait and see how that unfolds. But no, I mean I think it's early. I don't know why Bisbing would necessarily chime in on that. In the long run, I think it'll be healthier for him to establish a weight class. But
he's
as
got a
far as
podcast. He's got to chime in.
yeah, no, I get it, but
He's a
um,
media guy.
you know, yeah. So I just it's not I don't think it's that big of a deal. So that answers my opinion and your opinion on Paul's question. But getting back to UFC 253, the co-main event that night, Jan Blachowicz, uh, we all three of us, me, you, and James Lynch, all picked Dominic Reyes, and boy, were we wrong, man. Jan Polish
Yeah,
power. Uh, Holy crap, man! I talk about a run. There was a couple years back where there's some of the local guys around here I knew, but we're talking about maybe fighting him in Poland and stuff, kind of when he was just in KSW, and now to come into the UFC, not have great success, now to be on a tremendous run and to be a world champion is man, I didn't see it coming. I would have laughed if somebody would have told me that a couple years ago.
yeah. It's one of those things where it's and that's what keeps coming up now when you see news about him, and they keep talking about how way back when he wasn't someone you would even consider to come into title contention, let alone be the champion. And It just goes to show you, man. I mean, that is why this sport is as good as it is, because of the unpredictability. I mean, literally anything can happen. Anything can happen. I mean, we talk about Bisping again. I mean, on his way out of his career, he became champion and defended the title a couple of times. You know what I mean? With one eye and a bad knee. So it's like, it really is a great sport. I mean, I'd be lying. I know sometimes we complain and shit about there's UFC every weekend, but I mean, if there was 2 weeks with no fights going on, I mean, we had that for a little while, and we were going a little mad already. So yeah, man, it's a great
Yeah,
sport.
yeah. No, I mean, I think it's great. I think the cool part about it is that we all know, Jones has stepped aside for now. Jones was a different cat though, and so was Cormier. You're talking about two of the guys who are basically two of the best MMA fighters
Yeah,
of all time. Other fighters, I think a lot of the other fighters, a guy like Rumble. I mean, it's no real disrespect, but I feel like when his fights with Cormier, the fight was almost already decided before the bell rang. Like I feel like there was a mental block you had to get through if you were trying to get through John Jones or Cormier. So
yeah,
with Blachowicz now being the champion, I feel like it kind of invigorates the rest of the 205 class, because now your target isn't this unsurmountable
yeah,
mountain of a champion. Um, and maybe he'll go on a huge run. Maybe he'll defend the belt 10 times. I don't know, but realistically, if you're Rockich, or you're Anthony Smith, or you're some of
mhm,
these guys now who have, you know Rockich is on a roll, but some of the other guys who are a little ups and downs, they're like, hey, I'm 2 fights away and I can fight a guy I think I can beat now. It
yeah.
was a lot of lip service. I felt like with Jones, it was more like, let's just get a payday and hope for a Hail Mary. I think a lot of these guys
I
need
don't
to
know.
game plan.
I mean, well, the last two defenses on Jones. I mean, I think you even said that you thought that Reyes won that fight too. A lot of folks were on that page, but and now they're looking at I think when Blachowicz won, he called out Jones, but now we see this Israel Adesanya John Jones nonsense back and forth, which we'll probably may or may not ever see. Who knows?
Yeah, and I don't. You mean some of the Santos, the Reyes? I mean, I thought they both beat Jones. I didn't rewatch the fights a million times. I was at the Santos fight, and obviously I watched the Reyes fight on TV the first time. But I thought both of them beat Jones. Now, I'm not saying that some of these guys didn't think that they could beat Jones, but I just feel like it's a whole different world. The promotion, everything from the paydays to
Mhm.
negotiating, everything's going to be a little bit easier, I think, now with Jan, and you're going to have a lot of guys now who are all of a sudden in the mix.
The
So,
doping.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
Paul again says he'd like to see Santos with both knees versus Jan. Um, I mean, I feel like that's a fight that's probably uh, coming around the pike now.
yeah,
Jan was knocked out by Santos not all that long ago.
yeah. So that's one they could sell.
Yeah, so that was a little over about a year and a half ago. Santos knocked him out in the third round. So, yeah, I mean, there's fights to be made. Santos has to come back and win probably one more big fight to earn that. But other than that, man, I was impressed by Jan. I was glad he won. I said it on the show before the fights. I didn't think he would win, but I was pulling for him. He pulled it out. Now, other than Joanna, we have our second Polish
Mhm.
champion in the UFC, and I mean, I think it's good for him, especially. I think it's great. I think it's great for the UFC. I think it's great for Jan. Main event that night, grudge match that people have been waiting for about a year for. Israel Adesanya, Paulo Costa. We all unanimously picked Israel. We thought it would be a good fight, some chin checking. Turned out to not be the case. Costa really kind of went in there, didn't let anything go. Showed his chin, tried to kind of be a little
I have
cocky in
no
there.
idea what his game plan was, but it was aggravating. I hate it when guys try to be funny or whatever they try to do. I mean, the time for head games is over when that bell rings. You got to fight, and I know Dana White even said like he was wrong about it being fight of the year, but it wound up being, that's a quote from Dana White. He was wrong about being fight of the year, but it wound up being domination of the year, and whew,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it was dominant, but yeah, I get the point that he's trying to make. Yeah, I agree with Jake there. he looked like a joke. It looked like it's like you said, the head games shit. If you're gonna pull out a belt and try to act like you're some superior BJJ guy,
which is
and
fine. That's
which is
fine.
fine, but
Anything
but
before the bell rings is fine.
but I feel like the minute he does that, damn well he's not going to try to take him down. I mean, it's like almost like a reverse psychology that these guys try to act or something. I mean, if Costa really considers himself to be a black belt, and if you really think you're going up against a white belt, you have to have pretty low fight IQ to not try to take the guy down, right? I mean, that's my world.
I just don't know what his plan was. It literally seemed like he tried nothing outside of making some faces and joking around. And you don't want to do that with a guy that's already that's cerebrally someone that inserts himself into every scenario. He's like a chess player that picks all the moves before the first bell rings. You don't want to. You don't turn stupid at that time. You don't play those games. The head games are over, especially when you fight a guy like that.
Yeah.
The only person that I think would see, like, even if we talk about they keep talking about this dream match between John Jones and Adesanya. If that were to happen, I guarantee you we'd get all the fireworks, whatever press conference, the whole rigmarole before the fight starts. But when it starts, you're not going to see if anybody. I actually don't think, because if you look at the way Adesanya fought Anderson Silva that first round, there was no joking around really. He did one quick thing where he waved him on or whatever, but after that, because Adesanya, that's a guy that he looked up to, but he also took him seriously. And I think once they can do damage to each other and they take each other serious, we're going to see a real fight. But I mean, if that fight ever happens, which I don't think it will.
Yeah, I mean, it seems weird to me. I don't know. It's clown world if Jones is going to go up to heavyweight and now he wants to fight a middleweight, and I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know why Jones isn't out there calling out Stipe. Wouldn't that be the natural thing you were going to do if you were going to go to heavyweight? Wouldn't it be
Yeah, I
for
mean,
call out Stipe
I don't
or
know.
call out, I
That
don't know.
night, he tweeted a lot, and there was a lot of articles written of it. But one of the things that I didn't see that I caught was that he actually said, y'all mind if would you guys mind if I went and got my belt back when Blachowicz called him out? And I know Dana White said that would be a fight he wouldn't mind booking. But it's like, then why did you give up the belt so that that's a little annoying, but I guess it would make for a good fight. But I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, maybe John Jones is on the shelf, and all the other fights we can make seem like a lot more fun.
You can't have Jones and Adesanya going
Yeah,
at it. Jones talking about going up to heavyweight, and then all of a sudden just sign
yeah,
Jones versus Jan. Like that's not
yeah. He
that
just walked there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that's a letdown beyond belief at this point. If we don't get Jones and Ngannou or Jones Stipe, um,
Mhm.
then the UFC again has dropped the ball on a heavyweight
But
match.
I mean, this brings back to what we were talking about with Kamzat. I wouldn't mind Adesanya Kamzat, and because it's if it's COVID-19 fight matchmaking year, go ahead and throw that together if you have to get Adesanya in the cage one more time before the end of this year. But I doubt. I mean, I doubt
Yeah,
that'll happen.
I don't want to see that fight booked yet. To me that fight unfolds if you do Adesanya versus Derek Brunson, just to throw out a name.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden Brunson comes up sick or injured a week ahead of time, and Chimaev says, "Hey, I'll step in." That's the way that fight gets made to me. I don't want to see it booked this early. It's too early. He hasn't beaten any ranked competitors. He looks amazing, but yeah, I agree with Jake. To me, he needs 2 or 3 more wins if we're going to be credible. Now, again, we're during the COVID thing; anything could happen, and it also
Yeah.
depends on who they match him up with next. If he fights Leon Edwards next and starches Leon Edwards, then I don't care if they want to bring back GSP for him. Like let's start bringing out the ticker tape parade, because we may
Mhm.
be witnessing one of the Khabib 2.0 at this point if we got a guy who can just decapitate people. Um, so we'll see. That was UFC 253. Good event. Our picks were not great across the board. I had one more loss because I had Eubanks winning, but we weren't We didn't win anybody money a couple weeks ago.
No.
So that was UFC 253. There has been a Bellator event. We had the main event of Derek Anderson, Paul Daly fall through the day before the fight at the weigh-in. Um, Paul Daly, as a result, now is basically saying he's going to have a catchweight 175-pound fight to wrap his career up. Um, you know, I'm a huge Paul Daly fan. I'm not sure exactly where you fall on his fandom radar. I guess I would say a lot of people don't like him for some of the antics he
Mhm.
had in the UFC. He's one of my favorite fighters. One of the guys that I would pay money every single time he ever steps in the cage to go watch. I've been lucky enough to see him fight a handful of times in person. I think he's one of the best warriors we've ever had. I think he's one of the most violent fighters we've ever had, and I think he's a little old school, kind of an old school British guy where
Mhm.
he lacked some of the wrestling, but my God, man, his punches and his hooks are pound for
Yeah.
pound. I don't think there's many people that throw a stronger punch than him. So I'd be curious to see who he does in his quote unquote retirement fight. We know how that goes as well. But it'd be interesting to see. I feel like it would be a little bit of a disservice to give him just a can, somebody that he can just squash on the way out the door. I feel like no, I don't think he should fight Lima or Musasi or anything like that either. But I don't know, maybe a rematch with MVP. I know their first fight wasn't good, but
Mhm.
you know that might be a fight that uh, would get Daly hyped up. We know MVP has no problem doing catchweight fights, and at some point MVP's
Yeah, it's
got to
got to be something that's gonna,
he's got to have
have
something with
a.
some meat on it. He
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
I know he's fighting a decent fighter in Houston. Uh, I forget his first name. Last name's Houston. He's fighting this weekend at Bellator Paris, first huge MMA event in the country of France. Um, so we'll see how MVP gets out of that. His opponent is 8-0 and was a Cage Warriors champion. So it's not a can per se. He's not real familiar to the North American crowd, other than the diehard Cage Warrior Fight Pass fans. But I that something like that. I don't know, but I'd have to go through the thing with Paul Daly. But there's certainly some fights that would be good. I'm sad to see him retire, but um,
I mean,
he's
whatever
done it for his
happened.
wealth.
Yeah, whatever happened must have been something that maybe hit him. That's like, I can't put my body through this anymore. So, you know, I mean, it's good to him that he's acknowledging it and starting a plan. I mean, entertaining fights like you said. I never had anything. And I was never displeased with of any of his fights. The one time I interviewed him, I think when I was at one of the Bellators up here in it was for the when Saad had to step in last minute to fight him. I interviewed him there, and he was cool. Nice enough guy. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things that it's just like, um, it's time, and he's gotta he knows when it's time to move on. So it's good for him for acknowledging it and not pushing it too far past. We never
Yeah,
want to
there.
see guys won't go out on that whole go out on my shield thing is not that cool anymore.
No, it sounds cool. It's not great in the end. The other thing is he's also worked on television for Bellator for some of their European events. So perhaps maybe there's something going on behind the scenes with Bellator wanting to really expand their European project or their European project basically.
Mm.
Um, so maybe they got something worked out with him where he's going to be like a color man or kind of be the Chael Sonnen, quote unquote, of how they use him in Bellator, to kind of be the studio guy or
Mhm.
the fight expert basically, along
Yeah,
with
when they do their
Davies.
Euro series, yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah, yeah.
good.
That makes all sense. So hopefully that's the case. Best wishes daily. Hope they give him a great fight to move on. Like I said again, there's Bellator Paris this weekend. That is on CBS Sports Network. I think it's like 11:30 Eastern time, uh, give or take an hour. Check your schedule for that. But this will be live. Uh, Only the second Bellator event ever live for the whole world to see. So CBS Sports Network on Saturday morning. That's Bellator. Um, UFC this Saturday. Uh, get a nice main event. Corey Sandhagen, Marlon Moraes. Uh, Moraes, the always, you know, just savage, really coming off a win off over Jose Aldo at UFC 245. Obviously, he had his title fight lost to Cejudo before that, but he steps in, like I said, fighting after beating Aldo, who was given a title fight after Marias beat him, um, to fight Sandhagen, who's coming off of a tough loss to Ajo, Aljamain Sterling, in what was essentially kind of touted as a number one contender fight. So I'm not sure how you see this one unfolding. I personally am shocked that Sandhagen is actually, I believe, is the betting favorite. I would have never
Is
guessed
he?
that. That's what I heard. Let me
Let me
see if I
look it
can
up right
pull it
now.
up. But I saw people online saying, "Hey, get your money on Marlon while he's an underdog right now." Um,
Yeah, because Marlon for me is that's I never not pick Marlon.
yeah, no, I mean, uh, I'm not sure how he wins this fight. Um, Usually, he wins with his leg kicks and is just constant
Hmm.
action. So, um, Sandhagen's kind of a taller, lanky fighter. So if he's able to work those kicks, it could be quite effective. I think Marias wins a 5-round fight, probably by stoppage.
Oh
Um,
yeah, he's plus 115 underdog.
yeah,
Huh.
see, that's why it's almost like there's something there that we're not aware of or something. But I don't know if neither of them I'm aware of coming off an injury. Um, he hasn't fought in a while. We go back to last
Yeah,
December.
I don't know if it's the math of that these odds makers use to give some of the odds to some of these people, but I just yeah, that's odd to me. But hey, I mean, Marlon's definitely he's former champion of his own right, and yeah, I don't see him. I might have to. I wasn't gonna I wasn't gonna gamble this weekend, but now I might.
Yeah, I think it's weird. I mean, I don't. Again, I don't really. Sandhagen again is a great fighter. 12-2. Had a lot of hype going into his last fight
Mhm.
before Ajo put him down. Yeah. Again, weird odds are weird. I don't tell people to put their money down, but if I was gonna, like you said, if I was gonna bet, it would be on Marias. So
Yeah.
interesting to see how this unfolds. 13 fight card. Some other names on the card: Barboza, Ben Rothwell, to name a few. I, this is week 2 of the 5-week stint out there at Fight Island. So uh, be interesting to see how this unfolds. One of the other UFC notes that we had, not really UFC notes, but I'm assuming you caught the back and forth between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor about
Oh yeah, for the charity event. Yeah.
yeah. So basically, to catch people up, everybody's calling everybody out nowadays. Uh, McGregor finally just kind of said, "Hey, Dustin, why don't we do a charity event, quote unquote exhibition?" I think we know what that all meant, but charity event. I think it was December 12th in Ireland, and Connor said he would donate $500,000 just up front to Dustin's charity. And there was a little bit of back and forth, and
Hmm.
Dustin initially asked for boxing, and Connor said no, this is MMA, and then again, quote unquote exhibition, um, which would be a way to get around their contracts, I suppose. If you could,
Yeah.
it would be an exhibition, and then
Which is cool to see two guys ready to fight, and then I don't know, like it's almost like the UFC didn't want to be left out, and now it looks like the UFC wants to make it. I didn't. Again, there's an interview from the UFC. I forget the name of the outlet that Farah Hanoun interviewed Dana White for, but he said that the fight is like two or three, four, 2/3 of the way done, or three, some weird fraction that he used, that they almost have the fight ready to get booked, and it's just like, well, why didn't you just book it before? Why did it take the two of them publicly negotiating on Twitter for a charity thing that would have left you complete? It's because I guess because they don't want to lose that payday, because Connor against you or me is gonna draw millions. You know what I mean? So it's like it's literally like, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. If it happens, it's gonna be a 2021 fight when they can get fans into something.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, we've said I think we've both kind of agreed since day one of this pandemic that the odds of seeing Conor McGregor fight in an empty arena is pretty slim. We're 7 months, give or take, into this now, and he doesn't have a fight lined up yet. There was some rumors possibly about December 12th now with Burns and Usman getting postponed due to Usman apparently not being ready. Whatever, I don't know exactly what that entails.
Yeah,
Hopefully, it's not an injury or any kind of anything major. Hopefully, it's just a minor setback that he had. But I thought that was a little odd for a bout not scheduled till December 12th to already postpone it. Again, unless there was something behind the scenes that was a little worse. But
I honestly think it could just be logistic stuff with planning their next the end of the year, because we usually get quarterly announcements of events. You know, like if we weren't in a pandemic during International Fight Week, which is that first week of July, we would have seen the what we had to look forward to. By this time of year, next month is usually when they come to my neck of the woods for the Garden. None of that is happening, so I think we're just going to get these little tidbits of big events, but they have to, throw them all together. 254 has 6 fights on the main card when they showed it during the broadcast last Saturday during the World War Z Fest that happened at Abu Dhabi. But I'm just wondering if in trying to keep their ESPN subscriptions and all that stuff, you know, uh, circulating. I'm wondering if they're overbooking now with who's available and logistics and travel and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, I know they're staying in Fight Island longer than they should have or than they wanted to, but I mean, it's the best place for them to put fights together. But then it's like you still have guys here in the States, so I'm wondering like if Usman and I know Burns is in Florida, if Usman and Burns are in Florida, or Burns I think was there cornering somebody, so it's like maybe it's just like with quarantining and everything like that. Maybe they're just trying to plan ahead and keep some title fights on deck for future pay-per-views.
yeah, I mean, I feel like there's got to be a million fighters that we're forgetting on a daily basis because I feel like we're seeing the same guys booked over and over again. I mean, we see Leon Edwards in the news. You see Wonder Boy. I mean, that's two guys right there. It just seems like we're getting really. It's a weird case where I mean, I feel like one day we're gonna wake up and go, "Holy shit, I forgot about that guy." He hasn't fought in a year and hasn't been talked about, and I don't know who that's gonna be, but it just seems like that some of these fights can be made. I mean, you talk about a UFC fight card every weekend, and we all
Mm-hmm.
love it. Okay, we all like it. What we don't like necessarily is a 15 fight watered down fight card. That's what I don't like. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I watch UFC to watch UFC. I don't watch UFC to watch King of the Cage. So That's what some of us complain about. It's not so much that there's fights. It's that in a time, right now it's fairly cheap to watch the UFC. I gotta be careful how I say that, but it's not. It's not. A lot of the events are on free quote unquote free with the cheap ESPN Plus. Obviously, there's a pay per view. I feel like everything's kind of being
I
pushed.
might disappear, but if I come,
Yeah,
just keep talking. If I
yeah.
disappear,
I feel like I feel like a lot of these guys are being held back. I feel
yeah.
like that's why we're not necessarily getting stacked cards right now, is because the UFC doesn't want to all of a sudden get an alert that February 23rd we can start having people in the arenas, and they've already booked all their other guys. All their guys just fought in December, fought in November. Now all of a sudden they
Oh,
don't have anybody. Uh,
we were commenting on this just before we started recording. Leon
oh,
claims that
Paul.
everyone ducks him. Leon
Yeah,
Edwards, yeah. CD Baca, sorry, we were going to talk about that eventually, but I mean,
yeah. I mean, Leon Edwards is out there. He hasn't fought in a year. Calling everybody out. Uh,
is Ariel Hawani his manager?
you know, I don't know. I don't know how he thinks he's gonna there's no real easy way to say it. I don't think many people know Leon Edwards. I mean, we all know a lot of people who watch his fights. If I
Yeah,
ask if I ask the average person who watches fights with me who Leon Edwards is, most of them wouldn't know. A
you
lot of
want to
his
know how?
fights were on the late night or early morning fight pass crud coming up.
Isn't he? I mean, I'm pretty sure this is how my buddy Jeff and his brother Rich know Leon Edwards because isn't he the one that mid interview George Masvidal went and slapped around backstage?
Yeah,
Like that's how they
that's his
know him.
claim to fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, I know. And it's not completely his fault. Like I said, a lot of his fights, it seemed like coming up, were on on some of the European uh, Fight Pass events, and maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to look back his record, but he just doesn't. And he doesn't. I think Chael commented a little while back, and I don't remember if he was talking about Edwards or not. It was somebody else who was calling people out, and they're calling out retired people. And Chael just goes, "Hey, man, you gotta make a name for yourself. You're just a silhouette on the UFC. You know, you're just a
yeah,
silhouette on their fight card at this point. People,
yeah.
people got to be able to recognize you. And I mean, I know Leon Edwards. You do. If you walked by me at the airport on Thursday, I don't think I'd recognize him. I mean, I'm just being honest. If Masvidal walks by me, if Wonder Boy walks by me, if Anthony Pettis walks by me, if Marlon Moraes walks by me, I recognize him instantly. If Leon Edwards walked by me, I don't think I'd recognize him. And to me that's a big thing when you're trying to call people out uh, ahead of you in the rankings, especially when a lot of them are booked and stuff. I mean, the Masvidal ship has sailed. Masvidal's got Masvidal can fight anybody he wants right now and be one of the top draws in the UFC. Edwards has a better record. Edwards is probably a better fighter. But what has Masvidal done? He's talked the game. He's called out the people he had to call out.
He broke a
Uh,
knockout record when he knocked out Ben
he, he
Askren.
he he did something spectacular in the cage. He just didn't
Yeah.
grind out a decision win. Um, Stuff like that. I mean, is big. So I don't know. I don't know who I'd like to
I,
see him
I,
fight. To be honest.
I have to say too that he did pretty well when he came in last minute for that welterweight title fight. I mean that was one of the things where folks got to see, um, you know, a huge event with no fans in an arena, and they did great. They still did good business, pay per view wise, viewership wise, social, and all that stuff. So, Masvidal's a good fighter too. He's been in the game for a long time, so I'm impressed with his focus when it comes to that short amount of time. I mean, he was eating pizzas and stuff, and he still made weight and everything. I mean, the guy's definitely more. I sometimes I think his shtick takes away from the level of martial artist he is.
No, he's an OG. I mean,
Yeah.
Masvidal's been around a long time. I mean, dude's got a grip of fights. Um, he put himself in that position to be there for that title fight, though. Like you said, with his talk, he knew who to call out. He knew the right guys to call out.
Mhm.
He knew his voice would be heard when he called some of them out. He had that huge knockout win um, over Askren, and what did he do? He basically called out Nate Diaz from the cage with Diaz cage side,
I believe Nate Diaz called him out.
called him out, but
Yeah.
there was a butting of heads, right? It was created at that moment. This
Mhm.
wasn't, he didn't miss the opportunity. I don't remember the exact post fight speech,
Did
but
you
it was
see
something.
talking about that? But did you see that video? Nate Diaz was trying to get that rematch for 2021. He kind of cut together a small promo video. It
I
was
didn't see it. He wants to fight Masvidal again.
yeah, but like he wants to have the BMF rematch, and I mean, it looked like it had some steam behind it, but then, nothing else ever came of it. Um, you know,
I
so.
I, I don't know. There's so many other fights. That one just seems like it would be one to just kind of be a wash. That I don't really. I don't feel like the first one was really competitive. Somebody might argue, but to me, it really wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's I hate using the word casual, but it's what would draw the casuals in and boost up a lot of numbers because when now Masvidal's on that level of when Nate or Masvidal, any of those guys, Connor, that draws in the places that fill up the bars and stuff. Those are the places that those are the fights that make the most money. Um,
I feel like Masvidal has basically taken Diaz's spot on the pecking order of UFC money making, matchmaking. Uh, that level where he's at. I feel like Masvidal at his good point is what Diaz fans thought that Nate Diaz could eventually get to, in a sense. Um, I think Diaz, again, he's got his fan base. All these guys got their heavy fan bases.
Yeah.
Diaz to me just burns. I get tired of hearing him talk without fighting. Um, there's so many good fights out there.
Here's a
Uh,
question from Jake. I don't know who he's talking about. TJ who? Oh,
Dillashaw.
Dillashaw? Oh, no.
I think when Dillashaw comes back, I think he'll end up being a top contender. I would not be shocked if he ends up getting his title back. Jan will obviously be a hell of a competitor. When Dillashaw was on his game, as Jake, first event I ever took Jake to was UFC 173. So that would be why he's asking about,
Hmm.
173 when Dillashaw beat Renan Barao in the upset of the one of the upsets of the century, really in MMA. So I don't know. I think Dillashaw, well, right off the bat, I think almost everybody does steroids or some kind of PED. So I don't feel like he's going to have some huge drop off in his skill level. Um, I think he'll be right there. It has been a long break. It seems like it's going on a long time. I'm not exactly sure when his suspension ended. Is it already ended, or if it's, he fought in January? It was January of 18 when he fought Cejudo and then suffered the suspension. So we're like coming up on 3 years into that. He's got to be due back fairly soon here,
Mhm.
but I think he'll be a heavy competitor. I also see Paul did a little bit of my research for me and confirms that Edwards hasn't fought on a U.S. card other than his last fight against uh, RDA. He hasn't fought on a U.S. card since 2015. So I mean, we're talking five, potentially 6 years, depending on when those kind of hit during the calendar year. But yeah, I just don't think he's super familiar to the fans. But I don't know, man. There's a lot going on. We talked earlier about me finally getting on the road, doing it as safe as possible. Not gonna
Yeah,
not playing.
you're going to the bare knuckle thing that we had Joey Beltran on for, right?
Yeah, had Joey Beltran on last week, the world heavyweight BKFC champion. Yeah, I'm getting on a flight, going to a social distanced event. Fans are separated. I bought a table next to the ring, so I will be right front and center with plenty of room for me to stretch out and and enjoy the just bleed world of bare knuckle fighting. Um, I don't know what to expect. I look forward to it. I never thought I'd be going in 2020 to the middle of nowhere, Kansas, to go to an event. I'd gotten used to MSG and Vegas and
And the Staples
Staples
Center and all that.
and
Yeah.
yeah, all the bigger cities. I'm excited though. I'm excited to get kind of out into the middle of the country, see how some of the rest of the country is dealing with what's going on right now. Um, get out of California and just I'm gonna be happy as can be, man. Just hearing the bell ring for a fight going on in front of me, and I the card's pretty good. I'm not super up on all the guys. I know David Rickles from Bellator fame, the Caveman, is making his bare knuckle debut.
Mhm.
He's from the Wichita area, so he's fighting Sam Shoemaker, the Hillbilly Hammer, who most will remember, one of the big wears the big red, white, and blue American flag shorts. Got kind of famous. He fought BKFC one and had the big one punch knockout of Eric Prindle. And he's got the look. He's the full beard. Just you know, I don't know how to say it. He looks like a Midwest bare knuckle fighter. So I mean, the card they give me, it looks like a cartoon show of characters. So man, I'm super
That's a
excited.
pay-per-view through the app, right? He said that was through the BKFC app.
Yes, it's through the
Yeah.
BKFC app. I downloaded it a couple weeks ago. I initially subscribed. They wanted $5.99. After
Mhm.
hearing Joey, I went back on, and he is correct. If you subscribe to the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship on their app now, it is only $3.99 a month. They claim that will never change. There is a one-time $9.99 setup fee, is what they say. So they
Yes,
kind of
Paul.
gets
She's going to Paige Van
yeah.
Zandt is still going to be BKFC.
Yeah, Paul, she's signed. I don't know if she's not fighting at the event this weekend. I don't know if she'll be there or not. I know her and her husband had COVID a couple weeks back. I believe they're fully recovered now, but I don't know. again, I don't know. I don't really know what to expect. I have no idea. This is the first event
Should
of
be a
any
good
type.
bit of fun.
Oh, I think it's going to be a blast. I don't know. Taking a former employee of mine who now lives in Wichita, hit him up, and I don't know what he's going to think. I did take him to an event down in Tijuana in the early days of San Diego, Southern California MMA. But I don't know if he realizes what he's getting into with the violence that could take place. I don't know. I'm giddy, happy just to be able to do something again,
I can
playing it
tell.
safe. Oh, I'm stoked. Um, man, you sit around, I'm able to go to work still. We've been locked into this stuff. We had gotten a routine together. Me as the fan more, you as obviously doing the media stuff. We'd gotten a routine where it wasn't like you wouldn't let 6 weeks go without you
Yeah,
getting on a train or getting on a plane or going somewhere
yeah.
to kind of, do this. We do this because we're passionate about it, and passionate about just the entertainment that comes with it. So again, I'm pumped. I hope to have a ton of pictures. Uh, and man, I don't know what to say. I just think fans should check it out. And they all 12 of their cards up until this one have been entertaining as hell. Again, it's not for the squeamish. I get it if people aren't into it, but man, to me, I feel like I'm kind of going to an early UFC day where I had these feelings where like you don't know what's going to happen, and that is exciting for me because a lot of the MMA had become cookie cutter, um, and you kind of knew what you were going to get. Every once in a while, you were surprised with the Maz Vidal flying knee, stuff like that, which is just absolutely spectacular. But the idea of kind of going to a Tony's Pizza Event Center in the middle of Salina, Kansas to watch an event definitely sounds entertaining. And again, for me, Joey Beltran's a long time OG out here on the Southern California
Hmm.
West Coast. So
Friend of the podcast. So
friend of the podcast, just local fighter. I have a bunch of a couple mutual friends. So wish him the best in his fight with Marcel Stamps. Uh, that is let me give you a time for that. So that's Saturday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, I believe. It might be 9 o'clock Eastern. I wish I could be a little more on that, but yeah, definitely check it out. Bare Knuckle .tv or BKTV app. It's on Apple TV. Works great through all the streaming stuff. So certainly support them especially if it's only $3.99. So I don't know, but again, as you can tell, I'm excited for that. Ed, anything else you want to throw in this week? Anything else? Anything else I missed or we missed?
not that I can think of. I know as far as states opening up. I mean, you said you're going to Kansas. Florida's obviously kind of already doing socially distanced events with fans, and Nolan, who's been on the podcast, put out an article over at MMA Junkie that Texas will soon be on that list. So I wouldn't be surprised if I know Dana White kind of wrote off fans at events because of just the keeping the ball rolling. But maybe that'll change if things get better as the year closes out. But I mean, oh, what a rough one. I mean, it's good that folks can go do something though, because I prefer to see the fights regulated in the cage and not in the streets and all the other stuff we've been seeing. So
Yeah, I mean that's really one of the cool things about that's unfolded out of this pandemic, as far as MMA is how resilient a lot of these promoters have been. For the most part, a lot of people have been able to collect paychecks when you
hmm
wouldn't have really thought it. One more thing, we've got a couple more minutes here. I did see notes on PFL. I know you have a pretty good relationship with them. They've got some ups and downs right now. I know today they signed a bunch of guys. Cesar
I
Fajeda, some other
yeah,
Marlon or Shaman Moraes.
it's
Um,
funny how that news came out when Lance Palmer said him and a bunch of other fighters were going to file suit.
yeah,
It's just. I mean, and again, we were talking about this at the beginning of the pandemic. The PFL, they could have gone like everyone else has been gone. They could have gone, especially with their season format when it starts. End of May, beginning of June. You could have done a shorter season. I mean, look at other season sports that they're supposed to be emulating. We're seeing baseball. We're seeing NBA. We're seeing football back on now. They could have gone. especially with the bubble idea that's in effect for especially in combat sports has actually shown to be the most forward moving sport during this whole thing. The fact that they didn't go, I mean, I would say that I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a lot of them. Kayla Harrison voiced her frustration at the beginning, like this was in March, April. She did the interview with ESPN Brett Okamoto, and then Lance Palmer, Brendan Lawfane, who's just signing with them to jump on board for it. You know what I mean? That $1,000 a month stipend that they were getting, that's $1,000 a month, depending on where you live. If you're out here in Jersey, $1,000 a month, you're lucky you get a roof over your head with that.
Yeah. No, that's not going to cut it. Yeah, to me, it just seems like they could really save face if they just let these guys go. I mean, the way PFL is created, it's the tournament format. You really are creating your own stars.
Yeah.
Palmer, we already knew of. He's not the
Mm.
most fans don't necessarily cheer for his style. He's kind of been he's kind of a blanket.
Yeah, I mean,
He is a,
yeah, he's a
it's
good guy. He's a
successful.
good fighter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's successful. He wins.
he's gotten better.
He's won back-to-back championships. He has gotten better. But I don't see where I'm sorry, Bellator. I don't see where PFL would lose just going, hey, dude, just go.
Mhm.
You great run here. You want to go fight in Bellator? You want to go fight in the UFC? Go do it. What does it really hurt? The Bellator is just going to create another
They could have even said, "Go fight,
PFL.
do a one off while we're on pause, and come, as long as you come back." You know what I mean? They could have done something like that. I mean, that during a freaking worldwide pandemic, you would think they would give some sort of outs for these fighters instead of having them sit home. I mean, I know rest is good for the body, but that's me as an old head talking about how my body feels. These guys, all they want to do is fight. You know what I mean? Like Kayla Harrison, her interview, I remember like it was yesterday, because she just flat out said, listen, I'm not getting good if I'm sitting around. If I'm I want to be the best fighter in the world, and I can't do that if I'm not fighting. And a lot of these guys, those that choose the fighting life, a lot of them have that mentality, and it's just it's not cool. It's not cool. I think it's a bad move. I know that I don't know how their funding is going to be because of it. Their broadcast deal with PFL was supposed to be, I think it was 2 years. They had the 1 year, and this was the second year for ESPN. So who knows if ESPN's even going to bother to remember them? Like, do we really need to bring you back? We have enough MMA with the UFC going once every week or sometimes twice a week with the Contender Series and Ultimate Fighter and all the other stuff. They're bringing ESPN Plus. I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
they don't even have enough broadcast time to get UFCs to start on time. I mean, as you were
Yeah,
stating earlier, you had the football games go along, and the UFC suffers. By they moved it to ESPN News or whatever, but anybody DVRing or anything loses out on that. So
yeah.
yeah, it seems like their content is, while it wasn't long ago we were watching cornhole and marble racing. Now it seems like they really don't have a lot of
Marble
gap.
racing.
Marble racing, hey, that got me
Yeah.
through an afternoon. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. To me it seems like it would make sense for PFL just to let the guys that want to leave. It doesn't there and but the other thing that's weird is we've always not known where PFL stands, or as far as what's their connection to the UFC. You would think if they had a good relationship with UFC, the UFC would book some of these guys
I think
and
it's
just
Ali.
that might be it. So maybe
Yeah,
that's the only connection.
but
If
it's a
that's
big connection because a lot of
it's
the
big.
fighters are under Ali in both
Yeah.
organizations. So,
That's true.
but,
It feels like it's a missed opportunity. You said one-off fight would have been a perfect opportunity for PFL to go, hell, let's do a co-promotion with Bellator. Let's do our
yeah,
champ versus their champ. Heck, if our champ loses, we'll just let him go. What does it hurt
yeah,
us?
it's
We're gonna create
seasonal
a
anyway.
tournament.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, do they really want Palmer back? I mean, if we're being honest about it, like he's their two-time champion, but he's not their ratings getter. Again, not to he's done it right, man. He's made more money than 99.9% of MMA fighters in the last couple years, but
mhm.
he's not nobody's tuning in to
Oh,
watch him fight.
real
So,
quick, Jake's asking a question. We're gonna do that not next week, the week of. We'll be doing predictions. So we're probably gonna have a lot to talk about. So we're saving that one, Jake.
yeah, we'll save that. Maybe we'll even do a Friday night show and have some beers or something and go through that one. But Yeah, and anything can happen. This
It's
far
a big
out. So
card. It's a big card. Six fight main card. So and who knows what's on the prelims. So yeah, it's definitely one that's going to take up a lot of time. So we're just going to save that for the week of.
yep. So MMA fans got their or fight fans got their fill this weekend. You got Bellator Saturday morning, BKFC and UFC Saturday night. Plenty of action. Um, Fans can follow us at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Check us out at allaccessmma.com. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Uh, Man,
I'm
I'll
playing
keep
Dead by Daylight on there. If you anybody in the Halloween mood.
it. Yeah, so check out it on Twitch. You can also watch the podcast through his Twitch stream. Um, Again, thanks to everybody that listens. I look forward to getting away this week and letting y'all know about the BKFC experience next week. Ed, hang in there, brother, and I'll talk to you over the weekend.
Will do. Peace.